Hello everyone, I'm Tony Southcott.
And I'm Komette, and welcome to the Gorehound Playground here in Fort Collins, Colorado. This is Booze and Booze. It's where we pair yummy alcoholic drinks with our review of different horror movies. It's a new segment here on Human Echoes, and we're super excited about it.
And today we're going to be talking about Darren Aronofsky's 2017 movie, Mother. It stars Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem, along with Michelle Pfeiffer and Ed Harris.
And now, we're going to go to the kitchen where I can show you to make this week's drink. And welcome to the booze portion of Booze and Booze. I'm very excited because we're going to be making a drink that I like to call Momma's Yellow Powder. For those who have seen Mother, you kind of get what I mean, and for those who are about to, you'll get it soon, I promise. This is made from an obscure Brazilian liquor called Cachaça for an obscure movie. I thought it was kind of fitting. So this is a sugarcane rum, and rum that we know and love is made from molasses, which is a byproduct of sugarcane. So this is pretty much directly from it. It is kind of a sickly sweet liquor. When you smell it, it smells very sweet and it tastes extremely sweet. So when I was making this drink, I added a lot of citrus in it to help. It is clear, even though the bottle is not, and it is made from Brazil. It's very, very, very popular in Brazil. So the first thing we're going to do to make this drink is grab our shaker, and we're going to add 2 ounces of this to it. After we do the liquor, we're going to add 2 ounces of lemon juice also. And I have some ginger simple syrup here that I made earlier. We're going to add 1 ounce of that. This smells really good. After that, we're going to add our ice. You're going to want to pour that neat into any glass that you would like. So in the movie, Jennifer Lawrence's character continues to drink this orange powder that she uses to pretty much color her walls. So we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to drink it. Now this is turmeric. Very, very good for you, and we're just going to add it exactly like she did. So right now it looks like it's clumping, but if you give it a stir for a couple of minutes, it's going to go away. Although she doesn't drink this concoction in the movie with a lemon, I tend to like to make things a little bit pretty. So we're going to add a lemon slice. And there you have it. We have Momma's Yellow Powder. Very, very good.
Oh, I'm scared. These people. Who are they? What?
My wife. Well, that was something.
Yeah, we just finished watching Mother.
And I've got to say, I always underestimate Darren Aronofsky's ability to just turn a corner into absolute chaos. Like, it happened with The Fountain, it happened with Pie, it happened with pretty much everything but The Wrestler. So I don't know why, I didn't expect this to just descend into complete madness like it did.
Yeah, and I kind of warned him about it, and he still didn't really believe me. During it, he was like, wow, that is happening now.
It's the tonal shift. It's that everything's creepy. People keep showing up. People keep showing up. People keep showing up. And then it just goes completely batshit crazy. Mm-hmm. And we're mostly going to be talking about what we think this means as opposed to the review of it. Like, if we're going to give it sort of a nutshell thing, you have Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem in a house, very isolated. He's a poet. She's his wife. And they're, he's facing down some writer's block and just trying to get through. And whenever different people start showing up and start kind of giving him inspiration, she feels like she's being pushed away. And there's a lot
Well, she is.
Yeah, literally being pushed away sometimes.
Yeah. And and the focus of this movie is mostly on Jennifer Lawrence's character, which they actually don't have names in the movie. She's credited as mother and he's credited as the poet. So there's kind of that disconnect between where this can be really any type of story. But mostly it's about her trying to navigate through this life with this husband who kind of loves her, kind of doesn't.
Yeah, like there's a moment where she says, you love how much I love you, you don't love me. But like whenever you start looking at what's going on in the actual movie, there's a lot of different things that become fairly obvious as you go if you start looking at the symbolism. Like you've got Michelle Pfeiffer and Ed Harris who come into this house, and she's like a cold hard bitch. But also, but there's some pretty important symbolism there, because in the beginning the poet is a stand-in for God. Like you've got Jennifer Lawrence, who Darren Aronofsky has said is kind of a stand-in for the earth or Gaia, or like the spirit of life itself in a lot of different ways. But Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer actually are stand-ins for Adam and Eve. And you'll notice that even down to like whenever you see Adam being hurt, like he's got one of his ribs missing, or there's a giant bruise or wound over one of the ribs. And then the next day, Michelle Pfeiffer shows up. Eventually, their kids show up, and the kids have a fight with each other, and basically Cain and Abel happens. Like, you've got the one kid being marked on the forehead with a really bad scar that he's going to carry for the rest of his life, and the other one is dead. It's very biblical in that sense. And it sort of changes from act to act what Darren Aronofsky's trying to say.
Yeah. And I think that is the main part about this, is that it changes. At first, you think you know what this is going to be about, and you see the symbolism, and it makes a lot of sense, and then it turns a corner, like Tony said earlier, and it just starts to go into complete chaos.
Yeah, you start seeing that this becomes less an allegory about like a biblical allegory, and more about being artistic and creativity and what you're doing to yourself, basically, to make something brand new. You're seeing Bardem go through these phases where he feels like he's just completely tearing himself apart for these people that are coming to his house, for all these strangers, and they all want part of him, and they're taking and they're taking and they're taking.
But he loved it. He thrived on it. She was not interested in having all these people come into her house and destroy it and the love and affection, but he loved that more than anything else in his life.
It's what he really needed, and you see that with how, like, she just wants him to send them home, and he refuses to. The thing that actually sent them home is actually another biblical reference. Whenever they broke this sink, that she was like, stop sitting on that, stop sitting on that, stop sitting on that, and then all of a sudden the house starts to flood. And like that's kind of the end of the second act, and there's a lot going on here. I want you guys to also go to the comments and say exactly what you think is happening in this film, because there's a lot left to interpretation, and we really are going to need your guys' help in determining all the different things that are going on here.
Right. And so I want to move my opinion. So I've seen this movie twice. I saw it originally, and I've actually been trying to get Tony to watch it for a few months now.
Yeah, it's been at least 3 months.
Yeah, and I watched it in kind of late. It was like I went to bed at like 2 o'clock in the morning after I started this movie, and I couldn't sleep that night. This was an extremely unsettling movie. There's something about it, and when we originally talked about it, I think he kind of hit it on the nose, is that I am obviously a female and he's obviously male. I think this movie is kind of terrifying for females. There's the whole aspect of her getting pregnant and then falling asleep and her baby getting taken out of her arms the day that he was born. And then there's the whole aspect of them taking the baby and literally breaking his neck and dying, and then they eat the body of it. This is all absolutely terrifying things. But
that's just the literal interpretation of it, not even like the figurative interpretation.
Exactly. And in the second time that I watched this, and I was watching this woman who loved this man absolutely to her core, and I'm going to base this that I am an extremely cynical person now. I've had quite a few bad relationships in my life, is that it's really sad and scary to watch her kind of go through these emotions of trying to please somebody that will never be pleased by her.
Yeah, and there's no way that he would be pleased by anything other than the adoring fans outside. That he thinks he's like basically given unto them everything that they need. Right. And he's willing to sacrifice everything, including her, for it. Yeah. And this is kind of where the next idea of symbolism comes from, especially in Act 3, whenever it goes from being chaotic in the house to absolutely crazy, where you've got various religion iconography popping up all over the place. You've got war happening. You've got soldiers. You've got like what looks like concentration camps. You've got all these different things.
Sex workers.
Yeah, sex workers. Everything up in the house. And that's whenever this movie shifts from being like the biblical story to what mankind is doing to the planet, and that's what Jennifer Lawrence stands for in that third act.
Yeah, I think she represents what Mother Earth is, and how population or man is destroying the house, and which is like the same thing as her, is an extension of her, and they absolutely destroy it. And she can't do anything. She's just trying to escape, and it's not possible.
Yeah, and I think that one of the final lines of the movie was "I am I, and you are home."
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that pretty much encapsulates what exactly happened there towards the end. And there's a moment where she kind of offhandedly says, "I'm going to go take care of this apocalypse," and it was very foreshadowing for what they're trying to show at the end for what humanity is doing to the planet.
Yeah, and then so how the film ends, since we just did the 3 acts and then the ending, is that he asks that he still needs something from her, and if it's still there. And throughout the film, you get this interpretation of a heart kind of dying through each of the acts. Yeah. And
you see her put her hand to the wall of the home, and you see like this thriving kind of pulsating flesh-like thing. It's sort of a heart, it's sort of not. It's more like the heart of the home.
Mm-hmm. But it's also how healthy her love is for this man. And as these different things go on, her love for him starts to die. But in the end, there is still some love there. And once he takes it out of her chest physically and breaks it open, it's the crystal that kind of began all the chaos within the movie.
And it's not even so much that he breaks it, it's that he takes the ashes of her and forces it, because all diamonds are made from like biological material like ash, and he forces it into a new diamond. And he talks about that earlier in the film, about like how through this fire and through everything else in his life, he was able to reforge it. And this seems to be a cycle that's happening over and over and over again in the movie, because we see the exact same sequence whenever he puts the crystal on the pedestal again, and it restores the house.
It also makes another woman that's not Jennifer Lawrence. So it kind of shows, because that's how the beginning of the movie started, is that this is a cycle that has been going on and on and on. Because she burns the house down in the 3rd act, killing pretty much everything inside the house, except for the poet, who seems to be completely unscratched. And that's when the line of she asks what he is, and he says, "I am I, and you are home."
And that kind of comes back to the idea of the poet being a stand-in for God as well.
This movie was so unsettling. And it's just sad. I don't know.
We glossed over a little bit the fact that they like literally took her baby and ate it. And,
they ate it.
She like falls asleep for like 5 seconds, and the frenetic pace that happens in the 3rd act of this movie is hard.
Really
like
strange.
It's uncomfortable and it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, like my anxiety level, especially knowing what was going to happen, and I could tell Tony sitting next to me that his was too, is that it just slowly increases to where it hurts. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it made me wish we had a few more of these.
Yep. Some more of the Momma's powder for sure. It's really, really scary to watch, because it's evident that this woman would literally give anything for him. Except for when it came to her baby, when she was actually trying to leave the house, and he wouldn't let her.
Yeah, and that's what he took by force.
Yep.
He took the baby straight out of her arms, like, and showed it and gave it to everyone else. He kept saying, like, over and over again, like, they just want to see, they just want to know, they just want to touch. And then, like, they destroyed it. Yeah, immediately. And, like, he did have some regret there, but before she could even fully understand what was happening, he kept telling her, "We have to forgive them. We have to forgive them. We have to forgive them." That wasn't happening for her.
No, she was not. She was not into that at all. And I did notice that within the movie, every time that she would start to get legitimately mad, which was not very often. There was times where she was like, "Get out of my house. Why are these people here?" But finally, whenever she would get mad and talk to the poet's character about trying to fix something, or the story would use compassion in order to kind of force her opinion otherwise. For example, of when she wanted Michelle Pfeiffer's and Ed Harris's family like out of the house, he came back and told her that the child had died. She was like, "Oh, well then I'm so sorry." And that was her compassion. And then again with the kid, the first two people who breached the house in the beginning was the kid and the mom, but the kid wets himself, and so she used her compassion to kind of let it be, and then that's when everything just started getting worse.
Yeah, she has that compassion, and she tempers her anger with that, and eventually it just boils over.
Yeah.
And that happened with the flood portion. That happened like a couple times in this movie. She even tries very politely to get the people out of her house the first time. Michelle Pfeiffer, wearing just a bra, comes up and is like, I'm going to go check on my husband. Just kind of shuts the door in her face. Like, bitch. She is way too nice. And whenever she does break, it's at these points where it's like, it's been so long overdue. You're waiting for her to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Overall, if you have not seen this movie, it's hopefully you've been spoiled. I guess we should have said spoiler alert.
Oh, they knew what they were getting into.
Right. But watch it. It is extremely unsettling. It's worth the couple of hours. And it's different. It's not the typical slasher movie that you're seeing. It has a lot of symbolism. You can kind of interpret it how you'd like. There's no really survivors except for the poet.
Yeah. Well, think of this also more along the line of like what I've seen out of like French movies, French horror movies, where it's a lot more metaphor than it is like the full-on story, like where what you see on the screen is exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot deeper. It's fun to dig deeper into that, even if you're watching this and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And there's going to be a lot of moments of that. Even if you understand what's happening, like it still has twists and turns that you're not going to really be able to guess.
Yeah, for seeing it the second time, I noticed a lot more kind of what was going on, and I was trying to figure out more like what he was trying to interpret it, but then again, I have read quite a few things that says that Darren Aronofsky didn't even know what he was really doing with this. Like, it's a biblical reference. The age difference is a reference between him and his relationship with Jennifer Lawrence,
which was a thing that happened because they met on this movie.
Yeah, and then the Mother Earth interpretation. There's just so many different things that I've heard, which is the director doesn't even know what he's doing or what he's trying to do. I don't know.
Yeah, he has an idea of where he's going, and I think he just kind of let the script take it to a level that, I don't know, it's hard to interpret where it's like there's gaps. He wrote it as well.
Oh, okay. Well, then that
written and directed,
even makes
like where
sense.
he just kind of molded it into something and let it stand on its own, which is sort of the idea behind the crystal and everything too, because every creation that comes out of that is going to be perfect.
Right.
So it's fascinating what he was able to do.
Yeah.
I would say that this is not a movie to like go into whenever you're drinking a ton. We drank a little bit for this. Like maybe get really high, whatever. It's just weird and interesting and different, and I think that you guys will like it.
Yeah. Perfect. So we don't quite know what our next movie is going to be, but we're really excited about this new series that we're going to do. Please comment below on what you think of this, what movies you'd like us to review, what type of liquor you like. Like, there's so much that we can do with this.
Yeah, we're fully open to suggestions. If you have ideas for drinks, we'll see what we can do. We're going to try to make everything original on here. We're going to be doing this probably every 2 weeks. If you enjoyed it, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/humanechoes, or hit subscribe, like, share it with your friends, and we will see you guys soon with more Booze and Booze.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.